Have you been experiencing internal financial struggles triggered by economic concerns? Are you feeling capped at your current income level and can't seem to realize your financial potential? Energy healer Gene Border has created an emotional freedom technique, or EFT, tapping protocol to help calm the inner voice that keeps you stressed. Claim your free copy at geneborder.com/vow and say goodbye to those financial blockages. Welcome to another episode of the Focused Practical Dreamer's Journey podcast, Energy Work to Better Your Business, hosted by energy healer Gene Border. It's not just about dreaming, it's about making those dreams a practical reality. Subscribe to us via your favorite network by visiting our website at www.focusedpracticaldreamer.com. Now, get ready. Your journey to success starts here.
Hello, everyone. It's your host, Gene Border, with another really cool episode of the Focused Practical Dreamer's Journey podcast, where we talk everything energy, mindset, psychology to help you better your business. I have a special guest with me here, Dr. Jaime Raygoza, but before we get there, I want to remind everyone down below, there's a link for a free resource for you. If you're into energy work, tapping, EFT, it's a protocol to help you deal with your finances, grow your income, make financial decisions from a place of calm rather than a place of tension or fear or reaction. So if you feel like you've got something going on in your chest before you make that big financial choice, do a few rounds of tapping. And there's a protocol down below that'll help you do that very easily, very simply, and it'll bring your central nervous system down to a place of calm so that you can make a really great choice. geneborder.com/vow is the link if you're not looking at your phone or computer right now, but the link is down below. And now on with the show. So we have Dr. Jaime here. How are you today? So glad you could make it.
I'm very excited. Thank you for having me on.
Cool. So tell the listeners a little bit about you. What's your background? What's your story?
Yeah, so my name is Dr. Jaime Raygoza. I have a doctorate in human and organizational psychology. For those that don't know what that is, it's just a fancy way of saying that I studied psychology and business and how people function. My purpose was to learn more about what makes people quit, what stresses them out, what gets them burned out, and help them get through that. So my journey led me 15 years ago. I started saying I wanted to become a social worker, a mental health worker, and I wanted to help people in one capacity or another. From that, I went up in management, and a lot of my staff was asking me for very specific help, like on how to manage their stress, on how to overcome compassion fatigue, how to overcome burnout. And a lot of this stuff was outside of my scope of work. And my own management was like, you're doing too much. Like you're not allowed to do that. Just tell them what to do. They're adults. They should figure it out on their own. I hated that answer. Absolutely hated it. It was to the point where I would clock out and then help my staff on the side. And I was like, okay, I'm taking off my manager hat on. I'm putting on my friend hat on, and I'm going to help you. Well, I had one very persistent staff member, which we're still friends. And she was just like, you're doing so much for me. I don't want to take advantage of you. So here, I'm going to pay you for your services. And I was like, no, like, I'm just giving you advice. And he's like, you're an expert in the field. You're giving me very good advice that's helping me progress in my career, help manage my, take my money. And it took, after like a long debate back and forth, I ended up like taking it. And that's how my business ended up starting. And I got the idea, maybe I can do this as a full-time thing.
You brought up something that I find so, I work in the holistic healing world, right? With people who maybe don't have a lot of experience taking money for the service that they provide, when they feel so guilty that they're not just doing it because I can do it, I should give it away. I shouldn't charge for that. All the tension that brings in their body and the way, it's like, you've got a mortgage. You've got to pay your rent. You've got to buy gas for your car. Oh, but it's not right. They need my help. Well, let's see. You need a doctor's help. Do you pay the doctor? When your car breaks down, you pay your mechanic. There's so much around that piece, that little piece that you brought up. It's huge, right?
Mm-hmm. And it's a lot with self-worth and knowing our worth, like knowing exactly what we are worth and putting ourselves in that category. I think a lot of us, especially when we're trying to start a business and we have the concept of, I wish I could do that. You can do that. It's just that you set this invisible line in front of you that you said, I shall not cross because I don't have the credentials or I'm not that type of person. But it really doesn't really take a specific person to open up your business and start accepting other people for your services. If you either personally went through it, you've got education and in-person experience on a certain service or product, that makes you more than overqualified to do it. One of the pieces of advice that I've always heard is there's always someone out there who knows less than you, has experience way less than you, that is making more than you, all because they made the choice to put themselves forward.
That's a hard one to get past. And it's so true for people who have taken that, like with you, taking that money for the very first time. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. And then the second time is not so bad. And the third time, it becomes more normal, right? Because it was just nothing that you ever expected and you didn't know how to deal with it. But every time you understand the process more, the stress level drops and it becomes more okay.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And it's just know that your prices are not always going to be what they are when you start off. You know, I was charging $5 a session because I felt so bad. It was dirt cheap, nothing. Like you won't see that anywhere. You know, like I was just like, yeah, just pay me $5. And I was just like, I wasn't even making minimum wage. So then I went to 25 and then I went to 50. And then it just kept going up until like I actually like, okay, this is an amount that I can actually live by. And this is what my worth is. But it will change over time. And don't get discouraged where you start off. Just go with the flow and just know that over time it will get better.
And there's also the idea that you set in your head, after I get 2 clients at that rate, I'll bump the rate up. And when I get 2 clients at that rate, I'll bump the rate up, or whatever number you set, whatever process you determine you're comfortable with. But to set it and forget it is not a great business model.
No. Definitely set milestones for yourself. And that's exactly what I did. I was like, after five or 6 clients, I'm going to increase it again. So I didn't get this piece of advice until way later, but I had a mentor who told me, because I asked, when do I raise my prices? And he said, once you become too busy, you have to increase your prices. I was like, that doesn't make sense. I'm never going to be too busy. But then eventually you do get a full caseload or whatever. You're doing too much of the product or you're doing too much of a service. And once you increase your prices, there's people that are not going to take that price, but there's other people that are going to come in. And it really does change things around.
And not only that, when you raise your prices, you need fewer clients to maintain the same financial income, revenue level.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And so your time becomes more open, but your income doesn't drop. And then as you gain more clients at that rate, then eventually you're going to up your rate. One of the things I've heard recently is increase your client base by 10% and increase your prices by 10% every year, and your business will, grow exponentially.
Exactly. And one of the things that people don't take into account is inflation's going up. Everything around you is going up. Like I think the average inflation rate is anywhere from 5 to 8% a year. So why shouldn't your business also be affected by it? Your prices should also be reflecting. If the McDonald's burger, which once used to be $1 for a burger, is now $5 minimum for a burger, that should already give you like reflection of like, maybe you shouldn't be charging the same thing over time, since the value is not as the same like weight as it was back then.
And the perceived value as well. If a client looks at your rates and sees you're charging $5, what kind of value do they expect you to provide? Right? Versus you charging $150. They expect a better value. So they would value their time with you. and would pay more attention to the advice that you provide.
Exactly. And not only that, but another thing to kind of helped me as I was increasing my prices was when I started, I had a certain set of experience, but as I went through time, my experience grew and I had more specific examples for them, more specific worksheets and things and activities that I've developed because of that. And my experience became more niche towards this. So I wasn't providing the same value when I started than I am now. I'm in a whole different ball game. So why should I still be charging something if I'm adding more value?
Experience is, on one hand, it's hard to quantify, but on the other hand, it's very easy to see in the results, right? When you're new, it's like the scattergun approach. You want to help everybody. You'll take anybody's money just to get some money coming in. But the longer you're in business, the more your skills grow, the more pinpoint you are with your help for the client. I would expect the rates of pay to go up with the value provided, but not everybody is comfortable with that, right? It's hard enough that they actually took that first little bit of cash from somebody, the $5 or whatever it was, right? And so to expect them to continually increase their prices, that requires a lot of internal work to figure out what the heck is keeping me from being okay with charging more.
Exactly. And then also knowing that, yeah, first, when you're starting off your business, get whatever experience you can, accept whatever clients you can, learn, take that as a learning experience. But once you become more seasoned and your business keeps growing, you have the privilege to choose whether or not you want to work with a specific client, and knowing whether it goes with your organization's mission, with your personal small business, like, or big business, like ethical standards and whatnot. Um, because I've had to make that decision even recently where I had to deny a client telling them I don't think we're going to be a good fit. I referred them out to another provider that I was like, I think you'll be better with them, just because I knew it was a personality clash and they weren't ready for the level of commitment that it takes to be part of my program. So they were at a different level. So go with someone else that works with people your level. And doesn't say anything about them or even me. It's just, if we're not going to be a like a good fit, why am I going to waste your time, your money, and the resources where you can rather be paired up with someone that can really help you where you're at?
Yeah, another aspect to that is, because you brought up a personality not meshing, I heard some really good advice once. If there's really someone that you don't want to work with at the prices that you're offering, at what price point would you be willing to put up with whatever it is and be happy with it? And so if that's, a 75% bump and they're willing to pay it and you're happy with, that huge price increase, go for it. If you're not, farm them out, refer them out.
Exactly. And be careful, because I've done that before where I was like, I'm just going to give them a higher price and they're going to say no, and then we're going to be okay. And they take it and you're like, well, I got myself into this.
Now, you got to make sure that you'll be okay with the price, that much of a hassle is worth the time and the money that you're going to get for your time, right?
Exactly.
And the headache. Because
Yeah.
some clients, you just know that, when I'm going to cringe every time I have to get on the phone with them. And so if it's a cringe as opposed to a cakewalk, it's like you have to decide. And
Exactly.
and the way I explain it to my clients is boundaries. You have to decide what your boundaries are, time-wise, scheduling-wise, price-wise, client-wise. How much access are they going to have to you? So many areas where you have to create boundaries. And one of them is, what type of client will I work with?
Exactly. And it's good to define that. Like when I started, I created a vision board with my ideal client. What do they look like? What are their interests? Where do they hang out? What is their education level, their income level? Why are they seeking this type of help? Why would they purchase from me? What makes my service like attractive to them? And then really doing that market research. And that's easy for you to kind of identify your ideal client. And then from there, what are the things that I will not tolerate? What are the things that I absolutely will not cross that boundary? And then going from there, really developing those strategies so that it's hard to create boundaries when you don't know where to start off. So have a good foundation so you can create good boundaries for yourself and know your boundaries are going to consistently evolve too.
Because being able to say no is just as important for your mental health and
Oh, yeah.
emotional health as being able to say yes. It's much easier for us to say yes because we're kind of conditioned to do that.
Exactly.
But not all of us have the training or the being okay with saying, I don't think so.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And one thing that you have to be careful with too is a good chunk of entrepreneurs that go into service-based businesses usually like to give help to other people. And where that derives from is people pleasing. So you have to make sure that you're not sacrificing your own health and wellness over your clients. You have to be mindful of what is going to be my limit and what's going to overexhaust me and burn me out.
And for certain people, that's easy. I just know. And other people, it's like, I can't do it. They need me. They need me. Well, they need something. Okay.
No, and you can be in business for 5 days or 5 years. It's something it's a constant struggle. I've been doing this for 3 years now. I've been blessed and I still kind of struggle with that. Like there's some days that I are good days and I'm like I'm firm with my boundaries. I will say no and I would refer them out. There's other days that they just hit those heartstrings and they're giving me every single thing. They're hitting all the right buttons to kind of make me sentimental. And I was like, fine, let's work together. Let's do this. Or, let's extend your contract. So there's days, it's a roller coaster. So just know that we're human at the end of the day. And, just know we're here because we want to help people. And yeah, but just always ask yourself, is this okay? Is this going to shoot me in the foot or am I actually going to help me out at the end, at the long run?
And it's also important to pay attention as you go along to what fulfilled you and what just brought you stress.
Mm-hmm.
So that you can change those boundaries if you need to as you go along. You can change the type of clientele you work with. You can even change the type of work that you do if you have a specific focus. Because in my experience, it's very common for entrepreneurs to think when they start off, this is going to be what I do. And then it shifts a little and it shifts a little more. And so our niche, if that's a buzzword, I think everybody understands it now, can shift as well, which will require the language we use in our marketing to shift because we're going towards a different audience now.
Exactly. And one thing that it took me a while to like learn was that you will have different niches depending on different industries that you pitch yourself with. So you may still start off with the initial niche that you started with. However, basic example, just I like real like examples. I started off wanting to do stress management. So I was pitching myself out there. However, the people that I was putting myself out with, the people I was networking with, weren't really interested in stress management, but the buzzword that they were using was burnout. So I switched my whole presentation, my 30-second elevator speech, and I incorporated the word burnout in there, which then developed different programs out of it. And all of a sudden, people were interested. Then I went to a different population. Burnout was dead. They didn't care about it. And then I was like, okay. So then I would talk to them and I saw the glazed eyes. And I was like, well, I also focus on stress. Oh, you focus on stress management? And I was just like, okay, so let me bring back my old speech and then I used it for them. So then you just have to be flexible. You have to be able to adapt on the spot and know what works and what doesn't work. And track your data. What is working? What is not working? What pitch is bringing you more sales? What pitch is not bringing you more sales? How can I adapt this? How can I revise this? And one of the easiest ways to do that is just ask for feedback. I ask my clients all the time, what made you want to contract me versus my competitors? What are some benefits that you found out of this? What are some success stories? And I write all of this stuff down and then I use that to revamp what I present.
So just because you want to focus on one thing does not necessarily mean you have to say no to similar areas of concentration.
Correct.
Right? Burnout, stress management. I'm sorry, it's all part of the same parcel. It's it's a slightly different aspect, right? It's the way it's presented, it's the way it's perceived. And so that's an important note to make. Industry-wise, that's a really good tip. Pay attention to who you're talking to. I'm in the holistic health, I'm holistic intuitive, whatever. And so my clients come to me a lot of times for either physical issues or for business stuff being stuck, right? But that led me into working with real estate investors. Now, it's all part and parcel. It's different aspects of the same kind of stuff, but it sounds like they're totally different things. It's all in how you perceive it and where you can find points of connection.
Exactly. Like my goal is to work with mental health workers because, like I said, that was my main experience and that's what I was comfortable with. I had a presentation, I did a workshop. So one of the things I do for my stress management is laughter yoga, which is like fun and interesting. And it's just like a different way of relaxing, not like regular yoga. You get to breathe and do a lot more, like heal that inner child through the activities. And somebody was in my workshop that was a doctor. And they came over and then they're like, hey, I would love for you to do one of these classes for my clinic. And at first I was like, who am I to be doing these sessions for like medical professionals? Like they've studied like surgery and all of this stuff. They're going to think I'm like a whack job. And I was like, so I hesitated and I was like, you know what? Worst things that happens is that they hate it. They never hire me again. So let's just do it. So I went and they loved it. They ended up referring me out to this retirement home to work with seniors and do that. And once again, I was like, I am going off the course. Like, I'm not like, this is not my target population, not what I intended. But I was like, once again, okay, these two providers are one of my biggest clients now, and they consistently hire me for stuff. And they're one of my biggest advocates referring me out there to other industries. And now I'm like, in like real estate, I'm like in, with mental health workers, I'm with retirement home, hospice. And I was just like, you know what? I just have to go with the flow and be willing to challenge myself because that's what's going to make me grow, not only my business, but personally as well.
And that's so many points brought up today, but you have to try it once. A decision doesn't have to be permanent, right? You make a choice. I will test this out. Think of it as a test if you have to, right? I will test this and then I'll decide yes or no. That doesn't mean 6 months down the road, if a slightly different opportunity shows up, and that sounds interesting, doesn't mean you said, oh, but I said no 6 months ago, so I can't ever do it. No. You reevaluate all the time, make course corrections, I call them, right? To get you wherever you want to go. But enjoying the ride is a big part of it.
Yeah. And if you try something new that you were scared of and you get a rejection, that's not like a forever going to be no. Just because one client said no to you, you can still pitch yourself somewhere else and someone's going to say yes. Someone's going to try it out. There's so many times where I got so discouraged because I wanted to work with a specific population and they weren't being receptive to what I was at. But it wasn't until I diverged and I tried different fields that it gave me more credibility than attracted the people I wanted to work with. So just keep putting yourself out there, keep adapting. And like you said, nothing's set in stone. Things can always change. And if one day you want to switch it all up, then you're allowed to do that because you're the boss.
Yeah, actually you are. You get to say yes, you get to say no, you get to decide. You get to decide your hours, your clientele, how much money you're willing to accept, all that kind of stuff. But you brought up another very important word for small business people, and that's referrals. My business, that's 95% referrals. This person gets results. They refer X, Y, Z, ABC, whatever, and it just keeps going.
Yeah, I actually I subscribe for Entrepreneur Daily, And it's like a free online like magazine that you can get daily articles on. And I was reading an article where they said that a study was conducted on just overall the consumer population in the United States. And there's been a shift. Old traditional ways of cold calling, brand awareness, just putting themselves out there randomly are no longer generating the same amount of sales as they used to be. What people are now wanting to do is those warm handoffs from people that they trust, their friends referring them to certain people, going on Yelp and seeing who has the good reviews, who doesn't have the good reviews, and really just focusing on that human perspective. So referrals are super, super important. And that's been one of like my biggest ways that I've grown is I go out, network, meet other businesses that could potentially work with the clients that I want to work with. And then I say, hey, let's create a partnership. I'll refer clients to you that fit your needs. And then if you want to do the same thing for me. And we create that bond. And from that, you create this big circle that you're all thriving. One of my biggest philosophies in my mission statement when I started my business is I'm not going to do this alone because I shouldn't do this alone. There's so many people around me that I can support and that can support me on my journey. So what I always say is we thrive together.
But so many of us think we should have to do everything ourselves. And if somebody else helps us, number one, we're out of control. Number two, we didn't do it all. Number three, it's so hard to ask.
It takes so much more strength for you to ask for help than it is to do it on your own. Because you only know what you know, and you don't know what you don't know. So why are you going to do a double of work, reinvent the wheel, do all this immense research, wasting your time when somebody else could have just given you an answer within 5 minutes or could have helped you figure something out within a couple seconds? And one of the things that entrepreneurs fail to miss is time is one of your biggest resources that goes away so fast. If you can save time, you can do way more things. You can reach so many more clients. There's no reason you should be doing everything on your own. That's why, like, if you get to a certain growth in your business where you're making enough money to survive and you have leftover, hire some help, contract some help out, ask people, like agencies to like whatever to assist you with certain things. Like, there's no reason, just because you can do it alone doesn't mean you should.
The whole idea of do what you have to do and farm out the tasks that you can tell someone else how to do. If it's going to be the moneymaker for your business, keep your voice in it, right? If it's the technical stuff, sending out these emails, posting to social media, for me, it's all the, it's going to sound funny, all the tech stuff that is related to podcasting. I tried it. I don't want to do it. I pay somebody else to do all that stuff. They do the video editing. They do all the sound stuff. They do all the intros and the outros and the contacting people. I did that. I tried it. Sucked the life out of me. Is that the best use of my time? No, not really. I enjoy this part. I like the interaction, the communication, the connection, right? That's what juices me. That's what makes me happy. So that's where I spend my time.
Exactly. And I'm like, I run my own podcast as well. And I don't do my own editing anymore. I like have other people doing it because it takes so much to record and do all that stuff. And same thing with the business. I have a person that helps me with my CRM to help me like organize all of that stuff, my data entry, because it's just, if you're doing all of the nitty gritty, then you're not selling. And if you're not selling, you're not growing. And if you're not growing, you're going to reach a plateau where you're not going to have enough money to keep going. So you have to look at your systems. What can I either hire out or get assistance with? And that way I can focus on the things that I'm good at, and then I can help myself grow.
Yeah, there's this saying, if it's not growing, it's dying. So if you're not bringing in new in your business contracts, for me, it's just clients. If I'm not bringing in new clients, if I'm not getting new people on my newsletter list, if I'm not bringing in new guests for my podcast, then it's slowly losing momentum and eventually it will stop.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that's something they have to be aware of in business, that when you get people on your email list, people are going to start unsubscribing because they just get too many things, right?
Oh, yeah.
There's so many podcasts out there now. People are just going to jump around from podcasts. So you have to be aware and bring in really cool people like you, which are interested in the content, so that they get something good from it as well and refer you out to other people, right?
Exactly. And it's just being innovative and seeing it, because like some people get very consistent where like I'm okay. Like, everything's good. And perfect example, I had a client who has his own business, who has been successful for 5 years, had the same 10 clients for the same 10 years since they started. Excuse me. And they were doing well. And I would always say, why don't you go network with me? Come, like, let's do all these different things to be able to do that. Yes, I'm helping you with the stress management, but I'm afraid that you're getting too comfortable where you're at and you're just stagnant. If something happens that impacts your clientele, you're not going to be able to have the resources to, go through it. No, I'm fine. I'm fine. What happened? The beginning of the new year, 2 clients dropped because they could no longer afford the services because they had a dip in their business. So now they were down 2 clients. They can no longer afford to keep their staff. So they had to let go of their staff. And it was this whole thing. And then I was like, help me. And I was like, that's why I told you, you have to be preventative. Don't wait until the bad thing happens. Do it beforehand. We were able to get it done, and then they're back where they're supposed to be. But, don't wait until something bad happens. Do it beforehand.
Proactive versus reactive.
Exactly.
So since you brought up the bit about losing clients and having your business start to dip, there's stress that goes along with that. So if some of our listeners are in that space, what are some of the first things they could be aware of to notice it and then begin to deal with it?
So something that I recommend is always do client surveys, satisfaction surveys, and seeing where they're at. I do monthly check-ins with most of my clients. I also do coaching, so most of mine is to check in with them. But at least my model is to check in to see what are they satisfied, what are they not satisfied with, how can I improve my services, and what are some things that they hate that I do. So I won't apply every single feedback. There's some systems that work for me, but I always try to take their feedback and reapply it and adjust as needed and continue doing that. By then, I should also see how much time I have left with certain clients. So I already know ahead of time, this person's probably going to end by this date. This contract's going to end by this date. And so I can start planning. Okay, I need to do a little bit more networking on this month to attract more clients. I need to do a little bit more advertisement, a little bit more marketing. But if you're not in that type of system yet, and let's say that you're currently just going month by month, just take it one day at a time. If you just suddenly lost a big client and you're like, what am I going to do? See, where am I currently? How long can I survive without this client? How long do I have until they actually do leave me? And what can I do to make an action plan to replace that income in the next month or so? And then just making a strategic plan and knowing you don't have to do everything today. Take it one day at a time, and things will eventually sort themselves out. You've made it this far. You obviously know what you're doing. You've got the big client once, you can do it again. And you obviously have way more experience than you started. Go back to your tool belt, dust out your tools, and start busting things out that you did to reach the level you are at now. But now do it better, faster, and more efficient.
Because the first thing that comes up is fear, right? Mm-hmm. And so when you create the action plan, now you feel like you have a little bit more control. You know the security versus insecurity, right? I felt secure with this client, and now it's being ripped away. Oh no, what happens now? And so the stress level in the body comes up, And so we need to bring the stress level down so that we can make rational, calm, really good quality decisions. Just like the bit with I was talking at the very beginning of the show with the finances. When something really big happens, the roof blows off your house in a hurricane or whatever, right? And the tension that immediately comes in the body, the fear that takes over, once you have a chance to come from a place of calm and you say, these are the action steps. I'll just take them one step at a time. That's all I can do. I can't jump from the beginning to the end. There's steps that have to happen. There's a progression involved, right?
Exactly. And we start spiraling because like, that's the first thing that we do is like, well, I'm going to fail all this, blah, blah, blah. But is that really like, there's this concept in mental health called ants, automatic negative thoughts. Our brains have 60,000 thoughts a day. 80% of those are negative. These are these little ants running around. And the thing that I tell people is if you leave some crumbs on the floor and you see one ant and you ignore it, you turn your back, you're going to see a whole colony just wrapping around that food, taking it back. Same thing happens in our head. If you leave one thought and just let it fester in there, it's going to multiply. And that's where we start spiraling. So if you start having some anxiety, you start feeling like that fear, write it down, voice it out, talk to a friend, do record a memo, do something to get it out of your head so you can see it, you can hear it, and then make a plan for it. The problem is that if we just keep thinking and sitting down and we just let ourselves spiral, you're wasting time, you're not solving anything, and you're just being unproductive, and things are just going to get worse. I understand we're human, so one thing I do is I set a timer on my phone. I said, okay, I'm allowed to feel the stress, I'm allowed to feel this fear, but I'm going to set a time limit. So I give myself 15 minutes to do whatever I need to do just to feel this little panic attack. Once that timer rings, I take a deep breath. What am I going to do about this? And then I just go take action.
That's a cool technique. Because in my world, I'm in the energy world, so much of what happens inside is we figure, oh, I'll deal with that later. 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 And then you've got this pressure cooker that keeps building with all these things you're going to deal with later until it gets so tight and there's so much pressure, it just blows. Or you shut down completely, one of the two. And so then you have to work at peeling away all those things that you were going to deal with later, right? As opposed to just sitting there and saying, okay, where in my body do I feel this? And just letting yourself feel it. The physical sensation, just feel it and let it process.
If you need to cry, cry. If you need to yell, yell. If you need to break something, break it. Like one of the things I do that is very cathartic for me, I love lists, but I have ADHD and my brain does not like lists. So what I do is I create a list and then I transfer it into flashcards so that each task is a flashcard. And at the end of the day, I will rip those suckers up. So it gives me this good sense of like, oh, I did it. I did all these like really hard tasks that I really didn't want to do. And I throw them away. And then next day, I create a whole nother list and I do that. Do the same thing. If you have like a bunch of worries, write all your worries down in the flashcard. And then once it's all out, we'll rip them up and create a plan.
I know some people who burn them up.
Yeah. If you have access to fire in a safe place, do it.
How do you deal with burnout? That's a big question.
That is a big question. It's a heavy question. So burnout, one thing that people need to understand, there's different types of burnout. You can get burned down in your career, in your personal life, your romantic life. So you have to identify what are the stressors that are leading to my burnout. Do like a self-assessment and find out what's causing the stress. Because definition of burnout is just an insane amount of stress that became so much in abundance that your body can no longer handle it. So you start feeling numb, you stop feeling compassion, motivation, and now it's weighing you down too much. the way I look at burnout is somebody's putting on a backpack, and every time you get stressed, they're adding a rock in there. So now it's very, very heavy, and you're trying to still walk up this mountain that you've been trying to climb up for a long time, but you're getting slower and slower until you become stagnant. And the stressful part is that you're seeing other people around you climbing the mountain and they're still going. And then you're like, why am I such a failure? But you're not realizing that your backpack is super heavy while theirs is not. So you have to take a second to unload your backpack, finding out what are the stressors and how can I tackle these one step at a time. If the stressors are, I just don't have enough time, find out what are things to settle that time. Do I need to hire out? Do I need to change my system? Is there certain tasks that I'm doing that are just not really providing me good results in my business? I should maybe let go. Is there certain things I need to put a pause? Maybe not give up on, but just put a pause on. Maybe I'm doing too much at a time. And then just really like look everything out, pan it out, and seeing what can I unload and how can I balance things out a little bit more. If you're at the point where you feel you cannot do it anymore because it's just too much for you, then seek help. Seek a burnout or stress management coach. If it's something where you feel like it's deeper than that, than the surface level, then go seek a therapist or a psychiatrist, to unload these things. Seek a holistic healer, whatever it may be. There's so many resources out there, so many different ways of you to be able to heal and unload all of these heavy stones in your backpack. That get creative, do certain things. I personally like to go away for a weekend every now and then to Palm Springs. I live in Southern California, so I have the luxury of doing that. And I'll just go for a weekend and just no technology, disconnect, just bring a journal and just write. I'll go by myself, rent an Airbnb, just go on hikes, relax, do what I need to do. After that, I come back so refreshed. I have a game plan and I'm good to go. Take away yourself. There's this thing in first aid when you're getting trained in first aid where they say, if you're getting burnt, the first step of healing that burn is taking your hand away from the source that's burning you. You forget that
logical.
step.
So logical.
And it's like, at first I thought it was funny, but then sometimes you're in that state of shock that you still keep your hand on the Bunsen burner or on the fire because you're like, this hurts. Oh yeah, let me take it off. A chemical burn. Oh, I need to take the chemical off. So separate yourself from the source that's stressing you out, that's burning you out, just for a little bit so that you can get that mental clarity to understand what you need to do.
Oh, but I should just put up with it.
Why? It's like, why should you? Like,
because I should be able to handle it.
No, like a lot of us can't handle that amount of stress all the time. We cannot work 1,000% every single day.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, does your car put up with all of the miles that you do without having an oil change? Like, does your microwave consistently work without you cleaning it, without getting any mold or black mold in there? Like, does like your washer machine work after like not cleaning out all of and releasing all the water? All of these things around us need maintenance. Why don't we also need maintenance?
But we don't always make it okay for us to put ourselves first, even though our body is screaming at us to step away, calm down, pay attention to what you need. So many people get physically ill because of the stress, because they don't make it okay to step away or to take time for themselves to unplug, to go away for a weekend, to step away from a stressful situation or a stressful business. They keep doing little tasks that don't get them ahead rather than focusing on the one big thing because, I've got to get all these things done. Well, do you really? Are they doing anything except checking off a box to make you feel like you've done something? Sometimes we're very hard on ourselves.
We are our biggest critic. And I do want to be very vulnerable. And I wasn't always like this. The reason I even decided to go in this field is because I was burning myself out to the point where I wasn't getting any sleep. I was working anywhere from 80 to 100 hours a week with another company. I was sacrificing my time with my friends, my family. I had no like romantic relationships. Like I was neglecting my pets. It was just over consuming my being because I wanted to be the good worker. I wanted to promote. I wanted to, thrive. One day I ended up being so exhausted, working on like maybe 1 hour of sleep. And it was like every single day, only getting like 1 hour of sleep. I was driving home through this windy road and I ended up falling asleep on the road and then I crashed. My car turned, it got split in half. I fell unconscious. Next thing I woke up, I was in the hospital. I was marked as a John Doe. I was unconscious for 3 days. They said, we don't know how you survived, but your part of the car was unscathed. You were still with your seatbelt on, upside down. The rest of your car was in shambles, but you somehow, not a single scratch on your body. And then the doctor said, take this as a blessing because you should be dead right now. And that was I need to stop. I need to change what I'm doing. Like, obviously, like, like this is literally killing me. And that changed my perspective. So don't wait until a near death experience for you to change. Some of us are not that lucky. I could have easily died that night. And all of that work would have been for nothing. So listen to your body. It constantly gives you signs. Headaches, tummy aches. Like we get random muscle spasms. We get irritable. We're not being able to sleep. Some of us oversleep. You're not getting hungry, you're overeating. All of these things are signs that your body's saying, please pay attention to me. I'm tired. Give me a rest. I was talking to one of my best friends who's a business owner and actually inspired me to start my business. And I just called her just for a check-in and I was like, hey, how's it going? She's like, it's going. I'm being lazy right now. And I was like, what do you mean by being lazy? Well, I'm not being productive. I'm just sitting here watching TV. And I'm just like, okay, let's rephrase that. So what you're telling me is you're purposely resting your body so that you have a more productive day tomorrow. She's like, yeah, I guess I am. And I was like, okay, so don't label yourself as a negative when you're actually doing a positive. Rest is essential. It should be scheduled into your calendar, and it should be done on a frequent basis. It is not lazy to rest. It is productive.
And it's necessary for your body to function the way it was created to function. It was created to heal. It was created to support you.
Mm-hmm.
But when you stress it to the point where it can no longer function, it will talk back.
Yeah. You're not going to like things it tells you.
And the doctor bills can be really expensive, even if you have friends.
Oh, yeah.
So we're coming up near the end of our time together, but I want to make sure everybody knows that you've got some resources available for them. Tell us about that.
Of course. So I do, as I mentioned before, I do stress and burnout recovery and prevention coaching. So one of the things I offer for anybody who's interested and wants to learn more is a 1 hour free discovery call where they can just shoot me a message. We'll schedule a call and we can kind of talk about a game plan, kind of what's going on. I will give you actual resources and handouts on our free call so that you can do it on your own. So I'm never going to say here, like I'm only going to give you these if you work with me. No, my goal is to always help you the best as possible. If you want that accountability and the extra support, then we can talk about that. But I will always give you the tools necessary just to thrive on your own. So that there's that. I also offer free laughter yoga sessions in the community. So if you want to just have a fun time, heal that inner child and de-stress while laughing and doing some light stretching and yogic breathing, then look at my website. I do it online and I also do it in person. All over Southern California. So feel free to do those. And I also give a lot of good tips on my podcast, Finding the Unicorn in You, where we talk with a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners and people that are thriving in their careers and give you really good tips that you can utilize in every day.
Cool. So you mentioned you have Laughing Yoga Online on your website. What is your website?
It's rainbowcareercoaching.com.
Cool. I want to thank you so much for being here. This has been really nice. I really enjoyed this conversation. And I might check out your Laughing Yoga Online because we're not in the same state. So, the whole remote stuff it's really useful in so many ways. But do you happen to have any final thoughts for our listeners? I know we covered so much.
Yeah, just don't be afraid to do the scary thing. Every single day, try to do one thing that you're scared of and just put yourself out there. The worst thing that is going to happen is you're going to get a no, you're going to get rejected, but take that as a lesson so you can do better the next day.
Cool. And on that note, we're going to end up this really interesting talk that I've really enjoyed. Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it.
Of course.
And to the listeners, thank you so much for tuning in again. Every Tuesday, we drop a new episode. And I want to thank you so much for being here, for letting me know that you value what we bring to the table and that we sometimes give you some interesting tips. And I hope you find it useful. But this is your host, Jean Border, with the Focused Practical Dreamers Journey podcast. Until next time.
We trust you enjoyed this episode of the Focused Practical Dreamers Journey podcast. Energy work to better your business, hosted by energy healer Jean Border. Remember to visit our website at www.focusedpracticaldreamer.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Focused Practical Dreamers Journey.